Good morning everybody. I can't believe the sun's just this minute come out. It's 3 days before Christmas, so as you can imagine it's pretty cool. I'm at a venue today that I've never ever seen before. This is my first time ever. In fact, I only actually heard about the venue last night when I saw the website. I'm here in Nottingham. I'm on a still water. There are two lakes here. I'm going to be fishing this one today. This is the biggest of the two lakes. The water clarity is clear. Have a look at that. As you'd expect at this time of year, but I'm going to be fishing for bites today. I've got a couple of methods that I'm going to be fishing that I haven't fished with for a hell of a long time, and I don't even know if I've ever done a video about certainly one of the methods. So I've got my box in, I'm going to get set up and I'll talk you through how I'm planning on tackling this new venue. Now, I've got to be absolutely honest that my plan wasn't actually to come here over the last couple of days. I'm actually down in the Nottingham area. We were scheduled to fish the River Trent for the next 3 days. However, in Derbyshire they've had lots of rain. There's been some of the snow as well, which has got into the river, and that's pretty much made it unfishable. So that's the beauty with still waters at this time of year. You know, there isn't any ice on here now. Just a few days ago this was completely iced over, but it is at least going to allow me to fish. I've got a very simple bait tray. I've got some maggots. These are basically, they're not bronze, they're actually yellow maggots, live maggots. And then I've got some casters. And that is it. That is all I'm going to be using today. I'm not going to be introducing any ground bait. I'm going to be fishing for bites. However, there are loads of different species in this lake. As you can see, it's a large expanse of water. There are carp in here, tench, lots of bream, roach. I think there are lots of perch in here as well. So what I'm going to do is, I've got a 13-foot match rod. I'm going to be fishing with the waggler, and I'm just going to fish for bites to start with, and if we've got to tweak it and change things to try and catch a different species or catch bigger fish, then that's exactly what I'll do. So I'm going to get the rod set up. I've got some wagglers actually on winders. It's not something that I've shown you before, but I carry lots of my wagglers, particularly for the rivers, actually on winders already set up. So I'm going to get a rig on and just get a plummet out there and just get a feel for what sort of a depth we might be faced with. For those that know this venue, this is Hackett, and this is quite a wide peg. There's loads of room here. This is peg 45, and as you can see there's loads of room here in between the trees, and that's why it's going to be ideal for today's session. So I've got some waggler rigs already set up. I just store them on winders like this. I mean, this is normally, like I say, I'm only here really to fish the River Trent, so the gear that I've got is pretty much river gear. So that is why, you know, I've got all these winders and rigs with me. I've got some made up with stick floats on there. I'm obviously not going to be using those today, but these are the rigs that I carry for the rivers. I've got some loaded wagglers as well, all right, and I'll just carry them on winders like that. They're set at full depth of the rod, which is 13 foot, because obviously I wouldn't fish a waggler deeper than that, and they're just stored on winders. And that just means that if you've got any sort of intricate shotting patterns that you want on your rigs, then you can create those in the luxury of your own home. You know, you're not messing about fumbling with shots and stuff actually out here on the bank, especially when the weather's bad. It can be a bit of a nuisance, that. And my last telltale shot on these rigs isn't actually a shot, so that's the last shot before the actual hook. That is one of the quick change adapters that we use in our feeder fishing. That is actually, it's just like a number 8 shot really, and that is what I use to attach the hook length, and that's exactly what I use to attach that end of the rig to this winder. I just attach that to a length of braid, and the braid is attached to the winder. So that means that all I need to do is simply slide on a hook length. So I'm not attaching the hook length loop to loop like we normally do. It just goes onto that quick change adapter onto the loop. So easy. It just means that I haven't got to mess about, you know, with shots and stuff, and these will be shotted up at home, so when I do get the waggler out there it should be shotted just right. So the next thing is then just I'll get a hook length on, and we'll get an idea of what sort of depths we've got out there, because I don't really know what sort of depths we've got. So as you can see, I've got the rig on. I've got all my shots there that I can move to wherever I want to move, and then right at this end, that is where the quick change adapter attaches to a small piece of braid, and that's attached to the winder. Simple. Well, I'm finally set up. I've got to admit that took me a little bit longer than expected. It's quite deep. This is a 13-foot waggler rod that I'm using, and the It must be probably 11 foot deep, maybe, where I am. I've gone out, it actually gets deeper than that. I'm going to be fishing at about 12 to 15, about 12, 14 meters out from the bank. And past that, it actually goes even deeper than that. And obviously I haven't brought slider gear. I'm not going to be fishing going down that route. So in order for me to fish with this properly, I don't really want to go any deeper than that. So what I've actually done is I've found out exactly where that depth is, where I'm just touching bottom. And what I've actually done is I've actually clipped up the reel 3 turns past that. So I know that when I cast out, cast to the clip, like you would do when you were feeder fishing. And I know that exactly 3 turns on the reel will put me exactly on that same spot. It just means that I'm going to be far more accurate fishing on that slope, and it also means that I've got 3 turns to sink the line as well, which obviously is not going to be a massive issue today because it's flat calm, but it just means that I'm going to be fishing super accurate. I'll show you all the shotting pattern and the setup and everything in a moment, but I've just fired out about 10 maggots, that's it. But I'm going to just be putting 4 or 5 maggots in and probably 4 or 5 casters as well. I'm fishing quite light because I just want to fish for bites. So I'm going to kick off just with a single yellow maggot. So I can cast out to that clip, on the clip, and 3 turns back. 1, 2, 3. So my line's sunk now, and I know that I'm bang on the spot where I plumbed up. Anything past that is where it just gets deeper and deeper, so I've got to be careful not to, I don't want to feed past that. So obviously that's going into deeper water, so I'd rather feed this side of it so that any wriggling maggots and stuff or anything working its way down that slope is obviously going to work its way towards the waggler rather than away from it. And that's it. We're not fighting any wind, as you can see, but there is a little bit of tow on it. It's just towing to the right a little bit. If that increases, and I think that's a problem, I can obviously go a tiny bit deeper so that I'm laying on the bottom a bit to slow the waggler down, or I can simply on this swim just come back a little bit, because I know that by coming back a little bit it is actually coming shallower, so I'll be putting more of the rig actually on the deck. Got to admit that that's been a really enjoyable hour, to be honest, but I haven't had a single sign. It's really nice fishing the waggler like this, but we all know that when it's cold like this, particularly on still waters, it can take a while for a swim to get going or for the fish to switch on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue feeding this area. I've just found a light feeder rod in my bag, so what I'm going to do is I've just clipped up at 30 meters. The bottom seems all right there. It's obviously much further out from where I'm fishing. I've just mixed up some fish meal ground bait, so I'm going to put a couple of feederfuls of bait out there at 30 meters and just have a look out in that deeper water whilst I'm continuing to feed this waggler line. This is first cast on the feeder, and I'm sure I've just had an indication. That's a 1 ounce tip that I'm using. I've got 2 dead pinkies on an 18, exactly the same hook length and hook as the, I'm just going to tighten it, I'm sure that's an indication. I'm fishing mono, no braid or anything, 6 pound horizon line, so there's a bit of stretch there. I'm sure that was an indication. First cast. I'm going to leave it, try and make sure. I think that's on. Let's have it. No, don't think there's anything on there, but that was a definite indication. I'm just on this light feeder rod, 11 foot. It's the XRS with a nice, is it a 2,500 reel, this one? 3,000, it's the XR 3000. That was a definite indication. Can't believe it, first cast. Yeah. One of those pinkies was actually bust. I can't believe it, first cast. Just 2 pinkies on again. I've got to be careful not to go mad with it, because sometimes you can get indications straight away, and if you keep putting bait in, you could just kill the peg again. So I'm just going to be really cautious with this now. But how encouraging is that? First cast. And obviously while I'm fishing this line, I'm going to keep on putting a few maggots on that waggler line. That's only been out there about a minute. That's a fast bite. That's got to be on. Yes, we've hooked one. Well, that just shows you, doesn't it? Again, winter and location. The depths we're fishing, the ranges that we're fishing can be absolutely critical. I fished an hour with maggots, same hook and everything as what I've got on here, and I haven't had a single sign. I've only put 2 cage fulls of ground bait, half a dozen pinkies on this line. Looks like a roach. Now why aren't they on that waggler line, eh? Freezing cold, great condition. Well, just shows you again, location and everything. We're always learning, aren't we? Fantastic, that's good. So all I'll do is I'll obviously fish this line now and catch what we can on it and keep on building that waggler line up. Double pinky again. Obviously there's 2 changes on this line that's different from the, well, there's about 3 changes that's different from the waggler line. One is obviously the range, the other one is the depth, it's slightly deeper. The other one is I'm using pinkies, and the 4th one is I'm putting ground bait in, so it could be any one of those or a combination, but sometimes we don't always really care, do we? As long as it gets us the response and the fish, we don't always care what the reason is. That was a bite then straight away, and again we've got it. Well, how about that? Instant bites. We sometimes expect with roach. These fish are lovely on this little light rod. I won't be surprised if it's another roach with it being such a quick bite. Let's have a look. I don't know if there are any pike in here, but I can imagine them coming for these in this clear water. Hooks come out in the net. Identical roach. Freezing cold, that water's freezing. Beautiful fish, aren't they, those? Can't complain at those, especially in the depths of winter. Like I say, we're only, what, 3 days from Christmas? Let's get that hook out of there. Off you go, mate. No keep net today on this session. Believe what a difference that's made. Just shows you. So all I'll do is just keep trickling a few pinkies in. Them ducks are sat right on the line where I'm casting now, which is not going to help, is it? Better wait while they've moved. I don't want to hook one of those. And we'll just catch what we can on this line and keep on loose feeding that waggler line. We've got the wind off our backs here, making that range easy to hit. 30 metres, it's nothing with an 11-foot rod. That wind's got up a little bit actually. I bet that's increased the tow on the float line. I'm sure when we go back on that, just going to keep a few maggots going in. I don't want to go mad with it. It just shows that there are some fish feeding, they're just not on that line where we've been fishing, or the depth. No, positive bites anyway on this line, which is great. Just keep trickling in such clear water. It's nice to keep them maggots falling. That was a bite. It's nice to keep those maggots falling through the water, you know. A lot of the time that's as much of the attraction. That's a slow bite, that one. We've got him. That was a much slower bite, that one. Brilliant catching, you know, small fish on light gear like this. I mean, this rod rating is, it's only a 30-gram rod. It's really nice, especially with mono as well. It's ideally suited for those little hooks and light lines that we tend to have to use at this time of year. Should we swing him? Let's swing him. That's a lovely stamp though. Look at that beauty. Fantastic. Well, that's 3 and 3 casts from nowhere. Really enjoyable way of fishing. I did put about 10 casters in as well at the start when I initially fed this line. Just thinking that, and I've been told there are bream in here, there are tench, carp as well, but just thinking that any potential bigger fish, those casters are going to lay on the bottom and can be there for those bigger, slower moving grazing fish. Because obviously these pinkies must be getting eaten by the roach. Well, this is a better fish. I couldn't resist having a look on that waggler line again, and I spent about 15 minutes on it just to see if there were any roach settled on it. And I honestly felt that resting this feeder line would help, but the more I'm fishing it, the more excited those roach are getting, and I just felt that there wouldn't be a chance of a better fish. So I've left it, and obviously the swim's calmed down a little bit. The roach have either moved or lost interest, and I've gone back on the feeder. It's only been out there a minute, and I've had a much slower bite, much slower. Obviously a different fish, and we've hooked something much better. It's a bream. Still got that same setup, double pinky on a size 18. Look at that, brilliant. Well, that just shows you. Well, once again, that just goes to show what resting the swim can do. You could have carried on plundering those roach thinking that's all what was there, but as we know, look at that, but as we know, sometimes when they're like that, it's not giving the other better, slower moving fish chance to get to the bait. And it looks like those roach have moved out of the swim after I've rested it, and that's given this beautiful bream chance to grab those two fluorescent pinkies. It's freezing cold, but it'll be interesting to see if there's any more out of there. I'll continue feeding that waggler line, but I've lost confidence in that line at the moment. It looks like this feeder line is definitely the place to be fishing. Off you go, mate. That's it. Off you go. So I haven't really changed anything other than I've just slowed down repeatedly casting that feeder in, because some of those roach I was catching them as soon as the feeder was hitting the bottom. So you can imagine there must have been ground bait all over the place, and that obviously is what sometimes gets those small fish excited. And once you get them there, if you keep casting frequently like that, that's why sometimes they don't leave you. So that rest has obviously helped, but it's also highlighted as well that there still isn't anything settled on that waggler line, which I find really hard to believe. I just can't believe that fishing in that depth, I mean it must be 11, 12 feet deep where I'm fishing the waggler, that all those maggots I've been loose feeding, that they haven't just drawn those roach in. I mean, obviously there's roach in here, but it's also showing that they are feeding today, because I've caught loads of them on the feeder. I'll keep those maggots going in, and I'll give it one last look before we end the session, just to see if they're going to come in on that line as that light fades, which quite often happens at this time of year. It'll also be interesting to see if there's any more bream out there. I was out there about a minute and it was just a really positive, slow bite. If I'd missed the bite, you would have known that it was, there we go. Or was that a duck bite? No. The duck did go across the line, but it was a bite as well, and this looks like it's a roach. Yeah, so I mean this is my second cast back on this line. So obviously 2 feederfuls of ground bait's gone back out there, so this may signal now that the roach have come straight back. And we've just caught that bream whilst it was quiet and they weren't there. Let's net it. They're a lovely stamp, these. I can't believe we're not catching them on the waggler. They're a beautiful stamp, aren't they? Double pinky. As you saw, it was only in there a minute. So I think if this goes straight round again, if this goes straight around again, I'm going to obviously suspect and think that the roach are actually back already within 2 casts. So if that's the case, we'll just catch a few more of those before we finish off with a final look on that waggler line. Pinky's been the best bait today by far. Just putting about 5 or 6 in. Now that there's fish there, double pinky on. And just on that one spot at 30 metres. Which is easy to get to with this feeder with that wind behind us. See how long it is now before we get a sign. Well, I had 2 quick roach after that bream, and then there were obviously some roach back in the swim, so I couldn't resist again having another look on the waggler, and again I didn't get a sign. Not had a sign. Fished that for 10 minutes, rested this feeder line. I've gone back on it again expecting some sort of an indication, and I didn't get one. So I just put 2 lots of pinkies back in again, 2 big hits, expecting the roach to come back, to be honest. And I've just had a really slow pull round, and it looks like it's another bream. So it looks like that's definitely been the better way of catching the bream, by resting that line. That'll be a great fish to finish on. There we go. For some reason those roach and that haven't come in on that waggler line. I honestly have no idea why. Even though it's as deep as it is, I've been loose feeding those maggots, but this is why we cover our options in winter. You wouldn't have thought that those fish were going to be on the same line as where we've been catching the roach. You thought the roach wouldn't really give them a look in, but that's obviously not been the case. So that's great fish to finish on. It's freezing cold. I'm looking forward to a hot meal now. But this is a fishery that I'm definitely going to be coming back to 100%. So it looks a really nice, well kept fishery. And I'll be coming back here to target some bigger fish, I think. So I hope you've enjoyed sharing this session with us. It's been great to fish a new fishery, and I look forward to seeing you next time.